what would be a proper cadence of communication to, let's say, a lead? How often should they be communicating with them? Like, what does that cadence look like from your experience? And I'm going to ask you for different various types,
Sure.
but let's start with just a general lead.
So I think there's a couple ways to look at cadence, and I think again it's trying to put yourself in a borrower's shoe, right, or something like that. Um, but I think look like the more value you're providing through your content, the more you can engage them. Um, the more like interested or signals they're giving that they're interested or they need to be pre-qualified or whatever, the more you can hit them.
One thing loan officers, I would argue, probably do as poor as anything, it's effectively staying in touch with their past clients. And, most of you subscribe to a CRM, and that's good. But how you use the CRM and how you go in, if you just set it up and forget about it, it's not going to work. But if you go in and effectively use it and actually pay attention to things like pull through rate and understanding your numbers and how to optimize maybe a funnel, those are the things that are going to separate and differentiate and raise you to the top. And we're going to talk about today on this episode of the Possibility Podcast, where I am bringing a friend of mine, Spender Dusebout, does about 50 push-ups. That's an inside joke with Adium. So Spencer, you and I met, several years ago before, I think, Adium. And now here you are, you've built this platform, but I want to digress. And because I know where you're an expert, we've already kind of teased that, but I want our audience to know a little bit more about you. So tell us about you, kind of what brought you to where you are today, kind of how you got into the business and all those sort of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks so much for having me, Jeff. Great to be here and great to connect in this format. I guess a little bit about me. I've been your typical serial entrepreneur. I started a number of different businesses, most of which failed miserably. Tried to learn as most as I could from the failures. Eventually, kind of stumbled into a couple of different startups in the real estate side, generating leads for realtors, helping people grow their social presence, things like that. Lead generation, it was a good business, it paid the bills, but it's a difficult business because what do people always come back to you with is, well, the lead sucked or this lead sucked, or
Yeah.
and there's always some truth to that. Not really just great, of course. It's in the aggregate, are you making money or losing money? But ultimately, for me, what I got a glimpse into was just really the life of a realtor and all those involved in a transaction, real estate transaction. And a realtor loan officer is one of the few professionals out there. They pick up their phone day or night, not even knowing who's calling on the other end, because there's just there's so much stress involved and moving pieces, and not everyone's on the same page. And so I think for me, just seeing ways that I can help streamline that sort of transaction process, keep everyone on the same page, but then also just looking at it from the lead conversion side, helping people convert more leads. Because look, I mean, I get it. When you're busy like that and you're getting online leads, it takes 10 touch points to close them, or to really even get in touch with them. And that's just, I mean, very few human beings on earth have the discipline to make 10 phone calls. And so really just trying to find create some technology that could help your loan officers convert more leads, and also just communicate more efficiently with everyone throughout the entire transaction. And of course, to your point earlier, Jeff, then one of the big pain points is, how do I continue to keep in touch with these customers that I've worked with, and we're picking up their phone calls at 10 at night. How do I stay in front of them to also continue to provide value for them on an ongoing basis? So it's a little bit about me and kind of how I stumbled into this arena and ultimately started ADM.
So cool. So basically you're in the lead world and realize that as everybody says, the leads don't suck, you suck. And you decided that instead of telling them that, you would just go create the solution to help them convert and hold those leads more active, I guess.
Yeah, I think that was definitely the spark, if you will. I have a funny story on that. I do want to say, I think it's a little bit of both, right? I think, look, sometimes the leads aren't great and that can discourage you from following up with the leads that are great. But also just this profession. I mean, you're going to a happy hour, you're talking to different agents that you're trying to get, or you have people calling about this appraisal order or what happened. So I mean, it's to say that, like, just you know companies and industries that convert leads at a high clip, they have people sitting at desks that have like a phone thing on, and that's their job, right? And it's really hard to do that when your job is taking you all over the place. And so it's not to say that the people converting the leads suck. It's just like, it's their day to day is not conducive to being amazing at converting leads. The good thing is technology doesn't sleep, so to speak, and if
Yeah.
programmed effectively, is going to work around the clock for you. So I think there's that. And just kind of a funny story on the lead gen piece. I remember we had a customer who, and I won't say names or anything like that, but we had a customer that we were selling these leads, like their listing leads, was like $30 a pop. I remember in the first month with us, he got like 15 leads, so you call it 450 bucks. He lived in a state where he could double end a transaction, so do the listing and then help them buy something new. And so got two listings and double ended transaction. I don't know, probably made like 10, 15 grand based on the state. And I remember I went back to him like beginning of month 3 working with us and said, hey, would you be like a testimonial for us? Thinking like, this is the most obvious testimonial ever. And the response was, well, like, we started strong, but the last couple of weeks the leads haven't been great. And I'm like, well,
Wow.
dude, like we 30 extra money, but I guess that's fine. If that doesn't deserve a testimonial. Enough of those kind of pokes in the ribs. I was like, this it's a good business, it can pay the bills, but at the end of the day, like, it's do I want to be getting poked in the ribs like that every day? Not really. So some experiences like that kind of pushed me more to the software side of things, if you will.
Interesting. What a inconsiderate, kind of human being. But you know what? That doesn't surprise me, especially if it was a real estate agent. I can say that, just like you were being nice saying, well, I don't know if they suck. Well, yeah, actually they do for the most part. Let's just call it like it is. And I, myself included, like it's the human nature is wanting quick. Like we want to get rich quick. And I think that's one of the biggest problems in just the world, not just in our industry, and it's why so many real estate agents and loan officers, they constantly are jumping from shiny object to shiny object. It's not that the shiny objects suck. It's that there is no such thing as a shiny bottom of funnel sustainable it doesn't exist. If it did, we'd all be on it, right? It's all long term, and nobody's willing, because it doesn't matter what you do, whether it's leads or door knocking or farming a neighborhood or social media, all of them are effective if you do them consistently and over a period of time. And and that's, I think, kind of where I want to go with this today is helping a loan officer understand, all right, what do I need to tweak? What do I need to be better at as it relates to this conversation? And so where do you think that starts with your experience, which is way deeper than mine in this specific realm? What do you think is probably the most important topic at the top where we need to start to help a loan officer kind of maybe have a stone turning over moment here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for me, the aha moment is always this idea of, like, what does your sales funnel look like? Do you know your numbers? And so, I mean, look, we've worked with thousands and thousands of loan officers. We see the numbers, so we know the numbers. On average, for every 100 leads, a loan officer gets about 20 convert into an application that's completed. Out of the 20 apps that are completed, call it 10 fund, and out of those 10 funded loans, 2 actually do repeat business with you. So when you think about that, the first thing that should stand out to everybody is the 100 leads to 20 converted applications, right? This is that aspect of lead conversion. Someone said, I'm kind of interested, I'm raising my hand a little bit. And it's just like, okay, that's 80 people that you maybe had a conversation with or got introed with or referred or whatever, that you never did a transaction with. And then if you look at the flip side of, you did 10 transactions, only 2, and I'm being rounding up a little bit, the number is really 1.7. You
1.7
know,
conversions out of 100.
sorry, yeah, for repeat business. So
Got
you
it.
do 10, 100 leads, you roughly fund 10 loans, and you get 1.7 repeat business. So for every 100 leads you get 1.7. I mean, more than one transaction out of one lead, and so
That's
and
bad. That seems bad.
there's a lot of, but yes, and there's a lot of room for improvement. And I think what's really interesting about that is we like to talk about dating this idea of knowing your numbers, because when I tell it to people, they're just like, that's, yeah, right, like those aren't my numbers. And so the question I always ask back is, well, do you know your numbers?
Yeah.
And the answer is always no. It's not like, oh yeah, let me pull out my spreadsheet for you, or let me show you in my CRM. I do 35%, right? And whatever. It's always like, no, it's better. Okay, well, show me. Well, and then it's like, okay, well, let's look at that. We can find that.
Yeah.
Let's go into your point of sale. Let's go into your LOS. Like, let's backtrack this a little bit. And so, but that is the reality. And some people are a little better, or more than a little better, and some people are a little worse, as far as this ratio goes. And so, I think to your point, yeah, that sales funnel is inefficient. It's not great, but there's a lot of room for improvement. And so, I think what I like to look at is, I'm not an expert. I mean, you're much more of an expert than me. And how do we get more referral partners? How do we get more leads? That's great. I think what I like to think about is, how do we, for every 100 leads we get, how do we turn that into 30 applications completed? Every 10 loans that we fund, how do we turn that into 3 or 4 customers that do repeat business with us? And when you think about that, it's like, that's manageable. Like, what can we do to do that? And if you really think about that, let's say you go from 20 out of 100 applications converted to 30 out of 100, that could increase your business by 50%. And instead, I think most people are thinking about, well, I just got to get way more referral partners. I got to get more leads. I got to buy some leads. I got to buy this list from this guy who promised me all this money if I just email all these people. It's like, sure, maybe I'm not gonna say anything about that, but at the same time, like, why don't we focus on tightening up your sales funnel? And so, there's a lot of things that I've seen. I think, that's typically where I like to start, because I think it's just so obvious when people see their numbers. It's like, wow, there's really a real opportunity for me here to make some meaningful improvements.
So I want to digress to a term or words that you used multiple times here, which is sales funnel. And I think when people think about a funnel, it's complicated, because a true funnel really, I mean, there's probably a very, very small percentage of loan officers that actually have ever run a funnel, which means you had a cadence of messaging that was going to go out based upon a reaction or response from the first one, and then the second one that popped off different ways, and then that one popped off different ways. And is it that complicated?
I don't. The way that I look at it is, and look, sales funnel seems like this big techie word, and just for whatever it's worth, like, I am a technical kind of nerd type of a guy, so those terms maybe just make more. I've been exposed to them more. But really, what a sales funnel is, you're exactly right. Is it's just, what are the layers? So layer one is lead. What's the next step? Okay, I want them to complete an application. Like, what does your funnel look like, and then where are they getting hung up in the funnel? And the whole idea is, like, you want to increase those ratios from stage one to stage two as much as possible. And you want to hound them enough so that they're either, kind of telling you, please stop. Like, it's enough. Like, you want to get a yes or no real quickly. So, and you want to leverage technology to help with that. And so, like, a lot of customers that we work with, I would say, like, why not, engage with this lead 10, 20 times, over the first week or two. Like, what's the downside? The worst case is they say, yeah, no, actually, I got referred, but I'm not in the market anymore. Like, okay, great. But instead, what we see is, like, I texted them once, well, I'm going to give them some time to respond. Oh, a week goes by. Oh, let me try again. And then it's just kind of that cycle. I think it's just like, look, they raise their hand, hit them hard, hit them quick, get moving on it. And then just the inefficiencies we see too, like looking at point of sales. I know not everyone uses a point of sale, but most people do, or it's definitely growing in the industry. But we integrate with a number of point of sales, and just the dropout rate of someone that starts an app that doesn't complete it is insanely high. I mean, sometimes it's like 60% of all, applications or prospects in a point of sale are started but not completed. And I think we get that, right? Because you're sending them a link, hey, do this, and then they're like, well, all of a sudden I gotta upload my W-2, I gotta do these things. I'll get to it later, right?
Yeah.
And then they don't get to it later, right? And then a new lead comes in, and you're like, it's a shiny object. I gotta get on this lead. And so, look, those are things that, again, like, these are all things you can do, but also the goal of ADM, and I think the goal of anyone should be, can I get technology to do a lot of that work for me? Because again, you're gonna have busy days, you're gonna have sick days, your kids are gonna have sick days. Can you have technology that's automating that process for you? That's really like what I'm passionate about, is finding those points where people get stuck and saying, all right, just turn on these couple of things and integrate these things, and we're going to start to see improvements in your numbers. So that's what I'm passionate about.
When you were dropping that statistic about incomplete applications, is that specifically to the borrower that is sent to an app or sent to an online lead portal, not a one-to-one phone call type thing?
Yeah, it would be someone that, like, you've engaged with enough that they said, yeah, basically, I want to get pre-qualified. Okay, great. Here's the application. I get you pre-qualified, and they get the application, they started, and then they basically stop or
Hmm.
don't complete it. So that's kind of what I'm referring to there.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's a testament to a loan officer that you should get them on the phone or in person as often as possible and stop being
sure.
lazy. And I get it, like there's an efficiency thing there, but I wonder how many deals get lost or you lose because maybe another loan officer at another company picked up the phone, got it all done over the phone, and now they're going to move on.
I think that is absolutely a great point. And look, if you don't have too many leads to handle, I think that's getting in person or getting over the phone. It's a way
Yeah.
easier way to close deals. I love that. I also just, we see so many responses in our system where someone starts an app and it's a day or two later they haven't completed it or haven't even progressed, and our system's just like, hey, this is so and so with XYZ mortgage, like, I noticed you started and you kind of stopped, like, my team's to help you, call us anytime, here's our number. I know that it can be daunting, and just the amount of responses of people that are like, oh my gosh, thanks so much for reaching out, like, I have a quick question about this, or, oh, I started with that, you're right, I got to get to this. It's like, there's never like, how dare you, I started an application and you reached out to me. Not everyone responds, of course. Like, you can't get everyone to complete it, but enough people respond that it's like, just, I mean, why not, why not just try to provide amazing service and say, I'm here. And I mean, make it, you can make the verbiage not sound automated, and people are grateful for that. They're grateful that you care enough to think about them and engage with them in that way.
Awesome. So as we're talking about the knowing your numbers, and obviously I would agree with you. I think most LOs are not. They don't. They think, they know, but they don't know. And when you challenge them, they don't actually have it. So where do you go from there? And so now you've effectively had a conversation with somebody and for lack of a better term, maybe challenged them. And so then they say, "Oh gosh, I guess you're right. I don't know my numbers. What should I do?"
Yeah. So, and look, and there's a lot of, I'm not saying ADM is the only company or system that does this. I think the way that we approach this is we have this concept of playbooks, and it spans everything from lead conversion, transaction management, kind of client retention, post close nurture, or with their different integration partners. But the idea is really, I mean, everyone has room to improve on that lead to application completed, and everyone has room to improve from that funded to repeat business bucket. And look, every LO has a slightly different way they manage their transactions. Some people like to send a closing gift. Some people are heavy on tasks and they task an LOA or somebody on their team or whatnot. Some people like to have a color coded, spreadsheet or pipeline view and just check it every day. And so we found is like having a very flexible, robust system that people can kind of create their own workflows and everything on the transaction management side is is the way to go, because there's not one size fits all there. That being said, we have seen that there are, of course, you can make personalize it, make it your own, but there are some general buckets that really help people on that kind of lead to completed application and that sort of funded to reconversion. So some examples of that would be, a lead comes in and we just have a couple of basic stages. Like, okay, they're in the market to get pre-qualified. Great. Well, like, let's drag them to this stage or update this stage, and it's going to kick off a campaign that's engaging them until we get their information. Or a lead comes in from a referral partner. Again, you're continuing to engage until you actually chat with them and connect with them and move them to the next stage. I kind of mentioned the point of sale integration as well, where it's like as someone starts an application but drops off, like we can just kind of turn those things on, which provide a lot of value out of the box. And then on sort of that post close, once post closing, trying to re-engage them in the future, we try to be really creative about that. So of course, there's always that like, oh, let's say happy birthday or happy holiday, like stuff like that. That's fine, but I think we try to be much more creative, where it's like, let's send you a monthly kind of market update. What's going on in your neighborhood? Are people buying? What's going on? Like trying to think about how can we provide you value. And more recently, we've gotten into kind of this whole life events category too, where it's like, I mean, a great example I use, and just kind of one of many, would be when you're doing a loan with someone, you see all of the existing debt. And so, for instance, if they have a car loan that, let's say, is like 12 months away from being paid off, we can trigger actions off of that in our system. And this is a dedicated workflow where it's like 12 months later, it's going to reach out and say, hey, I just was going through my files. I remember that you had this car loan that was about to be paid off around this time. Not sure if you got something else or whatever, but also just wanted to let you know, like, if you applied that towards your mortgage, this is how much you'd save in the long run. Something like that is just providing so much value, and it's so different than like this whole kind of holiday birthday crap that everyone does and everyone gets. It's this idea of like, look, I care about you. I know more than just your birthday and your name, and that it's Veterans Day today or something. So we try to think about how can you make those kind of personalized touch points, and we have a whole content team that's dedicated to doing that. So again, we look at it as like, let's turn on these things. If you want the transaction management piece, you can turn on our canned stuff, or if you want to build it, or we can help you build it, that's fine too. But I kind of, the bookend thing is where I see most people, almost everyone can use a little bit of help there, and that's kind of step one from my perspective.
So you're saying sending out a spring forward or turn back the clock's not effective?
It was at one point in time, right?
It
And like
was, yeah.
it's just not today. And like
Yeah.
that kind of car payment analogy, insanely effective today. 5 years from now, it might not be, right? But today it is. And so we're trying to think about those things. Like what is no one else saying that we could do? I mean, and you see creative things like this. You see people where it's like they like donuts and they send out a happy National Donuts Day with like a photo of them and their kid eating a donut, right? It's like,
Yeah.
that's sort of hyper personalized, but it's also different. It's like, oh, this is interesting. I didn't even know,
Yeah.
what is Donuts Day, right? It's
Yeah.
like those types of things.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, that's the low-hanging fruit that I feel like it amazes me that nobody takes advantage of. Like even right now, you could send out a post about March Madness because it resonates with so many people. But nobody's doing it for some reason. It's like that seems like an obvious one. Or gosh, you could even go over the top for even my wife, who's not a big sports fan, but she's always like, I want to fill out a bracket, or I want to pick the teams, like she's gonna pick your favorite mascot or something. But you could actually probably have fun with that to drive some engagement. And yeah, now you gave me an idea.
Yeah, you could, or you get to know your customer a little bit. Hey, where'd you go to college? Oh,
Yeah.
great. Are you a fan? Like, what sports do you like? Oh, you've got a kid. What's your, now I'm notating your kid's birthday, and now
Yeah.
I'm sending instead of sending you a happy birthday card, I'm sending a happy birthday card to your kid. Like, hey, 18 years from now when you buy a house, like don't forget about, it sounds cheesy, but those are just things that people aren't doing or thinking about, and that's how you stand out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. So when we talk about the pull through, what are some of the best tips that you would have? Because I think as you've been talking, we're not just talking about lead pull through, we're talking about app pull through. We're talking probably about pull through from start to finish. So what are your best tips in terms of increasing or improving your pull through? And am I missing anything as we talk about just pull through in general?
Yeah, so I think it's knowing where you're losing people, and having an honest assessment about why. And it's easy to say, oh, I lost that person because someone was like slightly lower on rates. I mean, there's been a lot of research on this. Rates is not the number one thing that people are. I mean, sure, it's a factor, but it's not the number one thing. And so, I think the application completed is a big one. Like if you're using a point of sale, go in there. Like how many people started and stopped? Okay, well, is there a way that you can improve that? Either leveraging technology or just having a mental awareness of once a week, I'm going to go in there and make some follow-up calls. Another one we see too is this whole, now I've got them pre-qualified, but maybe I lose them. And this happens because maybe they get in a fight with the realtor, or it's like, you can't find me anything good. I mean, there's no inventory, but still you can't find me something I want. I'm gonna go for another realtor. And that realtor's like, well, you got to use my lender. Okay, so like, great, if I'm pre-qualified, how often are you engaging with them? We
Yeah.
see most loan officers, when you get someone pre-qualified, it's like, great, let me know when you're under contract, and I'm here. But it's like, you're missing out on an opportunity to get to know them, and constantly being like, hey, you're pre-qualified now, let me let you know what's going on in the market, like put you on some campaigns. And so we found that like that's a great way to increase that pull through there too, because that is a pain point. You have someone pre-qualified and said, why didn't this person fund with me? Well, they dropped the realtor, they went to a different realtor, and they picked a different lender. So I just think that's another one, right? Where it's like you have a campaign, someone's pre-qualified, and great, we're pushing content in front of them, so it's not to say it's a guarantee they'll work with you, but it is to say that like they're seeing your face in emails, and they're getting value from you. It just becomes a lot harder for them to say, well, whatever, like I'll go with someone else. So
Yeah.
those are two that come to mind. But again, I think a lot of it starts with just understanding like the different stages, and kind of the way that you operate, and where you're losing people. And it can be hard to look at that, but because again, the numbers are challenging, and you might not feel great about some of your pull through rates, but that's also, there's some great opportunities there for sure to improve and ultimately do a lot more transactions.
What would you say is the proper cadence? And that and I say that loosely. That's a loose question. That's a loaded question. What would be a proper cadence of communication to, let's say, a lead? How often should they be communicating with them? Like, what does that cadence look like from your experience? And I'm going to ask you for different various types,
Sure.
but let's start with just a general lead.
So I think there's a couple ways to look at cadence. And I think, again, it's trying to put yourself in a borrower's shoe, right? Or something like that. Um, but I think, look, like the more value you're providing through your content, the more you can engage them. The more like interested or signals they're giving that they're interested or they need to be pre-qualified or whatever, the more you can hit them. Um, and so, for example, like if your content's amazing and it's like you're providing them with so much value, you're showing them about different options for loans and what all this looks like, and you're sending out total cost analysis, what all that, like, then a borrower's going to be, or prospective borrower is going to be more interested in reading and seeing that content, But if you're just texting them like, "How's it going today? How's it going today?" It's like the borrowers will be like, "Well, I mean, dude, like, just stop it. You're being annoying." And so I think there's that. I also think it's the signals. So if someone came from a lead from like a lending tree or something like that online, like, well, they're probably shopping. Like, sure, you got to engage them, you got to get in front of them. But if a realtor says, "Hey, look, this person is really looking to get pre-qualified like this week if possible, because yeah, I'm showing them 4 houses and they like 2 of them like this weekend." I mean, is there any limit almost to how much you should engage with that person? I mean, you're doing that person and the realtor a disservice if you're not pre-qualifying them that week. And so I like to disposition that. It's like, it's a really hot lead, it's kind of a normal lead, or like a more nurture lead. And the hot lead is like you're engaging with them, it might be multiple times a day via text or via email. If it's like a medium lead, maybe it's cooled down just a little bit from that, and you're maybe trying to be more value oriented, so it's not just like respond, give me this information. And then the nurture lead is maybe someone like, maybe they went through the medium lead campaign, never responded. Okay, we probably shouldn't hit them up every day now. Why don't you send them some really cool content every 2 to 3 weeks, every month, or something like that? And so I think it's just dispositioning where they're at. But I think generally speaking, 3 buckets are enough. Like they're a hot lead, you're blowing and going. It's a normal lead. You're engaging, trying to engage with them every day for a week or two, and then you kind of space it out. And then look, if they're not that interested or aren't responding, I think you put them in the nurture bucket. But you might as well keep engaging with them. I mean, there's no reason to just say, well, they never responded, they're not interested. It's like, well, who knows what happened to them? Like,
Yeah.
they were interested at one point.
Let them unsubscribe, basically.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let them tell you, I want to be out of the funnel. But the key also is like those nurture people, like you want to have technology doing that for you, because you might have 100 past leads in that bucket, like it's not possible for you to type out those emails,
Yeah.
every couple of weeks, or write those texts or whatever. Like, but at the same time, like you do want to do it. Like it, there's definitely some fruit to be had there.
What about a past client? Like you say, you close the transaction with them. What do you suggest as the proper cadence to a past customer?
So again, I think it depends on how. So I think there's like triggers or life events where you're able to provide value to them, right? So like the car payment is a good example of that, but there's platforms out there. We do some of this, integrate with some that do as well, where let's say they they list their home, or they have a new kid, and now it's like, well, they're in a 3 bedroom, they just had their third kid, right? There's certain like life events or triggers. A lot of them you can get from the LOS file, and kind of the information you get from them. Like you'll know when their kids are going to turn 18. You things. I mean,
Hmm.
there's those points that you can kind of build around. But I think those are kind of non-specific. It's more like peppered in, where it's like, this is a moment in time where I can engage them and provide them with some value. And so I think with that, like if you're creative and smart about it, there's really no limit, like to those types of engagements, because they're so authentic and feel so personalized. And then I think there is the more general, like, I'm going to put a piece of content in front of you every month. I don't see an issue with once a month if the content's good. If the content's crappy, it should be once a quarter maybe. The content, but like it's that spectrum of like, okay, great. I took the time to actually write down some thoughts on the market and some opportunities and what's going on. Like people will gladly look at that once a month or every other month or something. But if it's just like a happy holidays birthday thing, it's like, well, I mean, yeah, I mean that stuff's super generic, and people get tired of that. So it's how much effort you're putting in. But I think generally past customers, I think once a month, if you have good content with those sort of different trigger life events kind of peppered in, is is great. And if not, then maybe kind of dialing it back a little bit. But I mean, really, the end goal is if you can be seen as a trusted advisor or an expert, they're going to come back to you. They're going to refer their friends to you, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
just depends
Well,
how much of an effort you want to make there.
as you said, 17% are the ones that will retransact with you. And it's probably primarily because of crappy follow-up, or, non-existent or just poor follow-up that doesn't move the needle and gets them probably unsubscribing in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, good example, like a newsletter we saw had some success recently, is like, consumer credit card debt has gone way up. Now, look, most of your past clients don't have are not massively in debt with credit card, but some of them might be. So sending out something like, hey, this is what's going on in the US economy. Consumer credit card debt is really high. And by the way, this makes certain refinance scenarios, cash out refi, whatever, like actually compelling to a lot of people. Like you probably don't have this issue, but maybe someone is in a lot of credit card debt. I'd love to see if I could help them get out from under that and tap into the biggest asset that they own and they have, right? Things like that are just interesting. Then people, think about that versus hey, happy St. Patrick's Day email. Like, I mean, we both know what's going to get exponentially better results there.
yeah. Well, or take the St. Patrick's one and make it a little bit more personal by, because typically you're you're doing business with people all within a certain geographic area. So why don't you put out a St. Patrick that says, here's my top 3 favorite Irish bars in and
Mm-hmm.
around XYZ market? That would be
Absolutely.
different. That might provide value. All right, last one. Real estate agent cadence. And so what do you think as it relates to using a CRM, that the cadence, the general, not assuming they have deals working together. So like throw that out, because that's different cadence. That's a no-brainer cadence. So it should be anyway. But just general, like what is the touch point that you think is the right amount of touches? That's not too many touches, that an LO should be staying on top of an agent just to stay top of mind.
Yeah, so I think excluding the transaction, let's say on the lead side of things, I think the cadence needs to be proactive. And again, you can automate this through our system, through other systems too. But let's say you've been hitting up a lead that you got as a referral all week long, they didn't respond. Automate a text message to the realtor. I tried this person 10 times this week. I didn't hear from them. Would you mind taking a crack at it? Now the real estate agent isn't going to call you Friday night and be like, what the heck happened to this this
Yeah.
person. It's like, well, I let you know. I tried, right? So I think it's just on the lead conversion side, and you can also do this through like reports of leads you're working. There's a lot of ways to do it. I think it's just being proactive. I'm on it. I'm talking to these people. And look, I couldn't get a hold of this person. Can you help me here? Right now, the realtor's like, okay, great. I mean, they see that you're on it, and they like that. But what everyone hates is the late night phone call. What's going on with this person? It's like, so avoid that as much as you can, and use automation as much as you can there, I would say. And then on the flip side, like just more nurturing your agents. I think if you have really great content that you're sending out to your consumers, I think having some derivation of that you're sending to your referral partners once a month is great, because again, it's the same concept. I'm an expert. I know my stuff. By the way, I just sent this to everyone that's done a transaction with me to let them know about what's going on with credit card debt and how refis can help someone in their family, one of their friends going through something like this. Just wanted to pass this along to you because I'm sure this could be helpful. Now the realtor's like, this is awesome. Like, this is great. Look how proactive you're being. I want to give you more of my leads, more of my customers. So I think like if you're creating great content for your past customers, once a month cadence, doing the same thing for your referral partners is great. And you can just tweak it a little bit. It doesn't, you want to make sure it seems like you wrote it specific to them, but just taking a couple hours to have something really cool and interesting, and then repurposing it for your referral partners, I think it's a great cadence. I think anything more than that, it's pushy and annoying. I think you should have content that it's almost like the realtor's job to read it and ingest it, because you're providing so much value to them, and how they can provide value to their clients as well.
Yeah. So recap that. What's the general cadence on just if there's nothing transactional or lead based?
I think once a month is good, with again some maybe personal stuff peppered in there as well. I think is that's helpful.
What if you're providing them like coaching? You're providing them webinars, and maybe it's something, let's just say like you're providing them a platform that provides a weekly webinar or coaching for real estate. How many times should an LO be reminding them about that, do you think?
Again, I think it depends on the temperature, right? If someone is really interested, you push them as much as you can. That's reasonable. So leading up to a certain event or a webinar, I think you'd push them a few times. It could be a few times in a week. If someone's indicated like, yeah, I'll take a look at that, then yeah, you push them once or twice, and then you tell them about how amazing it was when you're doing the next thing, right? I think it's all about just kind of reading. And usually it doesn't have to be overly complicated. Sometimes I see people, it's like there's 10 statuses of how cold the hot the lead is, and it's like, really, it's like someone's interested, someone's like kind of interested, in someone's like, you gotta kind of convince them, right? It's really what it is. And so, but you'd have probably more experience with the things that you do. Curious from your perspective, like, is more better, or how do you think about that?
Sure. Yeah. No, I was just curious. I would like to get different perspectives. So I feel like we've pretty much beat this horse pretty good. Is there anything I'm missing that maybe I didn't ask you that you think is share worthy with the group of loan officers?
No, I think it's a pretty simple formula when you think about it. It's know your numbers, know where you can improve, and then I think it's figure out the things you can do to improve, and figure out where you want to rely on technology. It doesn't have to be just you, but you also want to put your spin on technology. But I think it's just look at what are the three areas I'm losing people, um, and then what can I do to improve, and what can I rely on technology to do. I think you don't have to do it all at once. It's just make a little progress every day. Can I improve this by 2-3%?
Yeah.
This year, this quarter, whatever that is. Like, set reasonable goals, but also like leverage the technology piece. The more that I know it's time consuming sometimes to set up a new system to do all of this stuff, but the more you put into that on the front end, it's just something that's going to work consistently for you over the years and the years. And so I'm a big fan of systems and technology. But I think, look, if you do that, I think you'll start to see improvements that compound over time, but you'll start to see improvements right away too. And you'll also feel a lot less stressed about the situation. I think we all feel, I don't know about you, Jeff, but me personally, I feel less stressed when I feel like I have some level of control. And this is a level of control. Like, I can't control how many leads or how many refinances are happening in the market, but I can control trying to improve my numbers by 5% or something like that.
Yeah.
There are things that everybody can be doing to do that.
Yeah. Well, if there's one thing that most LOs have a lot of nowadays, it is time. And that's why we're having these conversations, because it's the conversation of all of the various things that they need to be implementing now before things do take off. Then it never happens. And then you just stay in this cycle. And I think that's where the strong separate themselves, because they take these opportunities to work on their systems and know their numbers, and focus on, adjusting these various funnels that they have to improve. So, Spencer, if somebody wanted to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to learn more about sort of ADM in our software platform, you go to our website, Think ADM. That's Think AIDIUM.com, where you can learn more. And obviously take a look at the platform, all that fun stuff. If you want to connect with me personally, the best way is via LinkedIn. So happy to make a connection there and share any tips and tricks, and also learn from any LO that wants to say, hey, look, these are things that's working for me that I'd love to share with the community, or these are, I want to challenge some of the things you said. Great. Like, my end goal is to just help LOs improve those numbers. So if you have thoughts on how to help me help LOs do that, then I'm all ears.
Awesome. I love it, dude. I appreciate you coming on today and sharing with our audience. And make sure you go check Spencer out. And you know what? I love that what you just said. Like, go challenge him. Get on LinkedIn. Go challenge him. And if you want to, just go check out the platform, thinkadium.com. Spencer, thank you so much, man. Glad we reconnected, and hope we stay in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jeff. Appreciate it.